Hi, this is Kyle Bondo.
And this is Timothy Chemo Bryan.
And you're listening to Podwrecked, the podcast that helps you survive your podcast. And today we find out if we had pandemic on our bingo cards. Hi, and welcome to the season finale or the year-end episode of Podwrecked. Yeah, this will be the last episode for 2020. Good riddance, thank God, goodbye, we'll see you later. 2021 cannot come soon enough because, yes, Tim and I did not have pandemic on our bingo cards, but we wish we had because, wow, what a year in review. Now, this episode is the special episode we do every year where we go through our predictions, the predictions we've made, a few of them through the year, and a lot we made the very beginning of this year to find out how well do we know the podcast industry. And there are a lot to go off of. In fact, if you want to play at home, you can go to our website at podwreck.com/predictions for 2020. In fact, at the very top of the page, you'll see a button for predictions, and go to predictions 2020. You can follow along and jump ahead if you want to, or see whether or not you agree or disagree. And of course, at the end of the episode, there'll be some contact information you can get to let us know. Maybe you disagree whether or not we got them right or wrong. But Tim and I are going to be pretty honest with ourselves. We're going to be pretty hard on ourselves. It's going to take a lot of convincing to see whether or not we got things right. That we're going to use the scientific method. Do we have evidence? Can we prove its validity? And if we can, then we're going to call it right. 51%, we're going to call that right. We're going to need a little bit of evidence, but not a whole lot of evidence, and we'll see. It'll be a lot of fun. So we'll look forward to going through these 20 predictions with us. But before we start, we have a very special announcement. And that special announcement has to be Tim's new microphone. Tim, it's time to unveil a man who has been asking for an RE320 for practically as long as I've known him. It finally came. He finally got it. It came in the mail. He has it installed. Here you are, the debut of Tim's new microphone.
I got to say that one of the first podcast conventions that I went to was MapCon, and that's held up in Swedensboro, New Jersey. So thank you, Super Joe Pardo. That'll be $100. And I was talking to a guy there by the name of Matt Passy, and we were talking microphones, and I told him what I'd gone through and all that, and he said, "You know what you need for your budget is, and I think your voice would sound really good in an RE320." And I was like, "Really? What's an RE320?" And I got the nomenclature wrong that whole weekend. I probably annoyed the crap out of him. And then last year, he brought an RE320 to Indie PodCon in Atlantic City, and I actually got to hold it in my hands, and I was cradling it like a newborn baby. I was like, "Oh, you will be mine."
It's an impressive mic. I mean, it's meaty. It microphone has. I mean, it got a metal. I guess it's an aluminum chassis to it. It's not light. It's kind of got some weight to it.
It definitely has some heft to it, much more than like an ATR 2100 or a Samsung Q2U, which is the microphone that I had been using. And nothing wrong with those microphones. I really like the Samsung Q2U. I was getting tired of waiting for the Samsung Q9U for coming out. I don't know what's happening with that. But I said to myself, I got a nice bonus at work, and I said, you know what? It's been a wonderful year, a beautiful year, a great year, a huge year. Let's go ahead and get the microphone and just be done with it. So, with my bonus, went ahead and got the microphone with a nice shock mount with it. And I also have, and Kyle can't see this, but I have my PodTrack, my Zoom PodTrack 4, and that's providing the power for this microphone. And it also has the built-in mix minus, so that way I can talk to Kyle on Squadcast. Squadcast will be $100, please. Matt, I owe you $100, so don't worry about that. And it's just, it feels really good to have a big boy microphone, and it does something for me mentally, and it gives me some confidence mentally for myself, so that way I can push through with everything that's going on over at Create Art Podcast. But Kyle, thank you for noticing my microphone. Thank you for putting me on mute. Really appreciate that. Money well spent.
Exactly. Let's do a little before we get into these predictions. Let's do a little test here. Here we go. I got a test. Let's see if this works.
And you get a 5-star rating. And you get a 5-star rating. And you get a 5-star rating.
All right. Now say that again.
And you get a 5-star rating. And you get a 5-star rating. And you get a 5-star rating. And you get a 5-star rating.
There you go. There you go, folks. Listen to those two pieces of audio and ask yourself, which one sounds better? I don't think, and here we go. And here's the best thing about this. I don't know if you can tell. I don't know if I could tell. But for some reason, the microphone looks cooler. You look more confident on the microphone. It looks way more professional than my jerry-rigged, foam encrusted. It's like, hanging from cables kind of thing. Look at my looking thing. So it's like I need to up my game. But I don't know. I think your new microphone may actually make you sound better. It just a little bit, a little clearer, a little crisper.
Mm-hmm.
You got a little more. It's like a little more fuller voice. I don't know. It's something that you have to listen to like over and over and over again, and it's probably something that only like a podcaster's ear could hear to tell the real difference. But the secret's in the sauce.
Well, and Kyle, if you remember when we first met, the microphone that I brought in was one that plugged in, and it had a 3.5 millimeter thing where it plugged in. It wasn't a USB plug-in. It wasn't an XLR plug-in. It went right into your laptop there, and it was like the world's crappiest mic. And it was like half orange and half black. I don't even remember what the name of it. I picked it off of Amazon for like $12. So to go from that to this with your tutelage, I'm eternally grateful. Not grateful enough to buy you a Heil PR40, but you have my gratitude.
Well, thank you. I think it's really cool to see you step up your game, because like I like to say often is the student is now the master. You may have learned a bunch of things that I taught you, but you have reached a level of education now where I'm starting to learn things from you. So I appreciate that right back. I know this is the year of gratitude anyway. So I'm very appreciative of that as well, because I think there are a lot of things I probably would not have done, had I not met you. So this is the good time of year to look back on that and say, thank you, Tim, for encouraging me to do things that I never would have done without you. So I appreciate that.
And to continue on with the gratitude, I think we should say a special word of gratitude to our Salvage team members. Without them, it gets kind of lonely out here. We're listening to crickets, but with everyone providing us wonderful feedback and, tossing a little bit here and there at the at the Patreon account, we definitely want to let you guys know that we definitely appreciate that. And we thank you for your encouragement. And we're going to keep on rolling on in 2021.
Yeah, and that's the coffee mojo, Cliff, of course, who kept us powered with coffee when we were at our lowest point. Mr. Dave Jackson, who sends encouragement just out of the blue in the strangest times. We're like, oh man, no one's listening to the show, and Dave Jackson then comes and says, hey, I heard that last episode, and here are some things I think about it. And, good job, guys. You have Mr. Matt Passy, who's constantly helping us up our technical game. Ross Brand, who taught me how to clean my thumbprint off my camera when it comes to video streaming. So these are some good quality entertainment, quality guests that we've had on the show, and I think has made the show better. And we're going to get into this in the predictions here in a second. And one of them is that one, and not spoilers, but we said that we wanted to hit 50 episodes. This is episode 47. And Tim and I had a conversation beforehand of, well, what if we just throw out like 3 cheap, quick episodes to try to hit the number? And we came to consensus that we're not going to do that. It's quality. Quality matters. And if we don't have a quality show to put out, then we're not going to. And I think that's become almost our guiding principle for this show. And I think it's good to be reminded of that as you build principles into your show and have guidelines in your show to say, you know what, you don't have to put out an episode to hit an imaginary number. 50 is literally an imaginary number. There was no reason to hit 50. We just wanted to hit 50. We thought that'd be a good target. It's a good goal. Well, 47 is pretty dang close. So that's been kind of our guiding principle for this year. And I think we've survived. We had some ebb and flows through 2020. There were some difficult times. I mean, Tim and I both have had health problems. We've had family upheavals. We've had a job wacky and craziness. We've had technical problems. I mean, I'm pretty thankful that we've made it to the end of the year, and we're still in one piece. Still got our health. There's still food in our belly. There's a lot of things to be grateful for. So I'm really happy, Tim. Grateful to have you still on board.
Well, Kyle, I'm glad that you've kept me on board because I'm the freaky one here. I'm the crazy one here. So, but no, thank you for bringing me on board with this. I've learned a lot from our guests, from our people that write into us. Learned a lot from you. And the great thing is with podcasting, the more you do it, the better you get. So, okay.
True.
So we didn't hit 50, but if you divide 47 by 50, that's 94%. We're 94% there. Guess what? 94%.
Wrong A minus.
That's a strong A in my book. So I'm going to go A for effort, A for, mission kind of almost accomplished. We're golden. We're golden.
Yeah, so that'll be a show for 2021 will definitely be can we hit 100 before the end of 2021? We shall see. This is the time for predictions. Now, some ground rules as we go down this, like we said before, right? We're going to be very hard on ourselves and be true to the what am I trying to say? We're true to the essence of what we were saying of what possibly would happen in 2020, and we put these predictions out without ever knowing a global pandemic was about to take place. So there's that part of it as well. So there's a little bit of understanding that these may be out of context in the sense of no one saw this coming, but it's going to be. I think these are going to be fun. These will be interesting. Those are the rules. We're going to keep track, and then we're going to go through each one of these and judge ourselves correctly. And I think we'll start with number 20.
Number 20, I have someone will pay us $100 in 2020, and that comes from episode number 29 for us here. Someone will pay us $100. You know what? I don't have access to the Patreon account, but I think we're close to $100.
That is true. If we do the Patreon, there is the possibility. Yeah, actually it does. It goes over that. Yeah. Mm-hmm. The Patreon account does get us over that number. Also, we participated in a couple conferences over this past year where there were contests and there were awards for points for being very active in the community. And because of that, I mean, both of us won Shure microphones. I won stickers. I've won, I think with Ross Brand's anniversary one, I did one where I won a free training for some sort of social media that was part of his giveaway package. It seems like every conference I come away with something. If not a trunk full of stickers, sometimes it's a microphone, or sometimes it's really good. I mean, I've come away with an Echo Dot before. That's kind of cool. So did we get paid $100? Did $100 cash, like a $100 bill show up? No, but we got $100 back in a whole different ways in goods and purchases, and plus Patreon subscribers. I'm going to say this one's true. I'm gonna say we did this one true. Maybe there should be a bell, like a ding, ding, ding.
Well, the coffee
On a
that
bell
Cliff
sound.
gave us was definitely worth $100 because he gave us both a coffee package.
Oh,
So that's
yeah,
$100.
absolutely.
Yeah.
So if anybody, we have super fan Cliff, who definitely made this one. Now, in all fairness, did any of the other people that we've mentioned 1,000 times in this show send us $100? No, but Dave Jackson did send us feedback. So, and it could be considered $100 worth of coaching. So in a way, that's kind of $100, even though the Dave Jackson, that's $100, Dave, is probably owes us about $2 or $3 grand at this point. He may have to mortgage his house in order to pay off this debt.
Now, Dave did say that the check is in the mail on this one.
He
that
did.
It's coming as soon as he wins the lottery. Our check's in the mail. So I don't think he plays the lottery, but
DC Podfest last year, he did walk up to me and say, "I think I owe you like $900." That's pretty funny. Okay, well, moving on to number 19. And this one is the ear of podcast, the era. See, I got a typo here. I got to fix this. But it says to say the ear of podcast festivals and conferences, which is kind of funny. That's a nice pun. But the era of podcast festivals and conferences has hit a critical mass, and there will be less in 2020. How do we do on this one, Tim?
Wow. Going from all the ones that we saw in 2019 to one in 2020. Now I think we got this one, but let's talk this out a little bit. Now, okay. A lot of the podcast festivals went online, so that counts. And I know that Super Joe Pardo did a whole bunch of mini conferences, and Podfest Expo. Yeah, he did like 5 or 6 at least.
I was like 5 of them. Yeah.
So he did a bunch of those, and then you had Podfest Global Summit, which we went to, and then VidFest that you went to, and then Masterclass, which we both went to. So I'm going to agree that we're correct on this because there was other festivals that went away. That didn't happen. Like there was the Podcast X that was supposed to happen in Tennessee that didn't happen. I do believe that Chris Coran had something going on that didn't happen. So
okay,
yeah, I'm going to give this one to us because if we say the in-person festivals and conferences, it hit critical mass, and there was definitely less.
I'm gonna say we got this one wrong, and here's why I'm gonna say that. I'm gonna say because when it comes to the era of conferences and hitting their critical mass, Super Joe Pardo upped his game hard, and that's $100 there, Joe. He had the beginner conference, the e-conference, the Podfest Icon 6 online. He had the masterclass conference. He had a social media conference and a video conference. He just went crazy with conferences, with virtual conferences. Chris Kermissos, $100 to you, Chris. Same deal. I mean, I was at the last live event on the planet. I was in Orlando in March, the eve of the pandemic. And I left Orlando where one person I remember at the conference was wearing a mask because they heard something on TV, not knowing what was about to hit us. I think it was like March 8th, right around that time, where people were kind of like, it was a conference where they had like a sticker on your badge that you weren't allowed to touch people. You could give them the elbow or the high five or something like that, the air high five, but you weren't supposed to touch people, to keep kind of away from people. But really it hadn't reached the wackiness that it got with toilet paper and paper towels at that point. So, but after the pandemic hits, Chris Kermissos goes with the Podcast Global Summit, which breaks the world record for the biggest virtual podcast conference ever with 5,003 people. Then he does the Masterclass, which had a whole lot of great info. Then he does VidFest, which was just again another just panacea of content. And really, I don't know if he would have done all those because VidFest and PodFest kind of happened at the same time, and then that's it. And then there's a podcast movement maybe in the summertime, and then that's it. There's really nothing else that happens over that time. And then Joe does the Mid-Atlantic Podcast Conference, which is now the Independent Conference, and that's it. He does one, and that's it. It's over. Where when we go virtually, boom, Chris Trevissos does 3, and Joe Pardo does 6 plus a lot of different smaller little one-on-ones on that. So I would say that the era of podcast conferences is not hit critical mass yet. That maybe next year will be the time when people kind of like, oh, enough. I've been online enough. And really, realistically, towards the end of the year, I was kind of getting a little worn out sitting at my computer at my desk to watch yet more video conference because I work from home. So I'm watching video at home, and then I'm turning to my personal computer in the afternoon and watching conferences in the afternoon as well. And it's like, wow, this is a lot of screen time. I need to go outside. This is killing me. So how are we going to rate this one? I'd say it's a, did I turn your head? Do I say we got this one wrong?
Technically, we got it wrong. I am going to dispute it, but technically, I'll go with it that it's wrong.
Okay. We'll remember this later on when I dispute one and you say no, because you'll get like a I put my foot down on this one. Yeah, I believe what's the Futurama line is you're technically correct, the best kind of correct. All right, Tim, number 18.
Number 18. Podcasts get shorter to be more morning briefs versus long form. Middle will shrink, and the shorts and longs will get shorter and longer. So basically, what we're saying there is we're going to get shorter podcasts, and I think that and then the long podcasts like
it's like the middle. The middle's ripped out. We got really super short ones or super long ones, and nothing really in between.
And I think we're seeing definitely in 2020 that being the case, because think about it. Before 2020, we were listening to it on our morning commutes. Kyle and I's morning commute can be 3 hours a day. And that's a good day. That's when everything's on time. And we got the worst up here in DC. The average commute is, 20 some odd minutes. Now everyone's average commute went from 25 minutes to going downstairs and turning on the computer.
It's a rough traffic.
So if and when people are showering, that's the perfect time to listen to a podcast, while you're in the shower. I did it today. I listened to a podcast while I was in the shower, and it was a half-hour podcast, and I still haven't finished it yet because I take 5-minute showers being prior military. So I think this one is correct. Plus, we're seeing a lot of catch on with the briefs that are being done by like your Alexas and your Echoes and all that kind of jazz. They're doing these quick briefs. When I go on to Google Podcasts, I have a special thing on there where I can get mini briefs like that, your news update, and it's a playlist from different podcasts around the country that are like 5 minutes long. So they give me my news brief, and I do it myself. So I'm going to say, yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna agree with you too, because I've seen like 3 particular shows. I mean, Pod News has always been short and has become part of the Lady in the Tube of my flash briefings. 2 other podcasts too. The New York Times put out The Daily, which is super short, that goes in there. Dan Bongino started releasing his Bongino Briefing, which is another short one. So you have these big time heavy hitters in the top 10 who are putting out these little tiny short ones. On the flip side, I listen to a show called The Sean Ryan Show. He's a Navy SEAL who talks to other Navy SEALs and Special Forces guys. And here we go. I'm looking at looking at Pocket Cast right now. In November 18th, he put out a podcast that was 11 minutes long. Before that was 5 minutes long. The one he just put out on Wednesday is 5 hours and 30 minutes. I mean, I haven't listened to a 5-hour podcast since Hardcore History with Dan Carlin. This is a 5-hour. Now, of course, it's about Eddie Gallagher, who the retired Navy SEAL who was tried for murder, which was a really big news in the Navy industry for quite some time. But wow, 5 hours and 30 minutes of podcast. I was like, I don't know, I'm sure where I'm gonna what am I gonna do to start that? That's like a mountain bike ride, in the Shenandoahs. That's 5 hours with a podcast. So yeah, I think the longers. I've noticed how many podcasters are starting to do long form. Even some of my stuff, I was doing short form stuff with Not Easily Squished, but I tabled that for a while. When I started doing the Civil War podcast with War Yankee, I started thinking, like, man, I should probably make this shorter. And it turns out the feedback I got was, why? Tell the story until it's over. Well, that turns out to be, an hour, hour and a half, sometimes, somewhere in the middle there. So I think you're right. I think the middles are shrinking. The shorts are getting short to do the definitely speakers and short concept and short bites of, people got short attention spans. But it comes to long form and people really want the content, they're okay with it. And this goes back to, again, on Facebook, I saw this morning, which was, what's the ideal length for a podcast? And I know Dave Jackson, he told me a little while ago that he didn't say this, and I forget who he said did say this, but I always quote Dave Jackson with this one, which is not too long, only too boring, right? But yeah, okay, so 18 is a right. All right, we're 2-1. We're 2-1. Okay, so that leads us to number 17, which is federal and state government expand podcast usage internally to employees for engagement. Now, this is, I know, near and dear to your heart, Tim. And lo and behold, at my job, sure enough, the two ladies that do our internal office podcast were gone for a while. They had kind of given up their podcast in 2019. And come 2020, like the phoenix, they rose from the ashes and suddenly their podcast was reborn. Why? Because they're sitting at home with nothing to do. That's why. And suddenly there is a large group of employees that are just spread out everywhere that have no contact with anybody else. And I saw not only podcasting, but videos done this way too. My chain of command inside where I work, from the executives on down, were releasing videos to explain the crisis, what we were doing about it, work changes, training, all that was coming at me. And it wasn't live. It was appointment media, where I could download it and watch it when I needed to and listen to things that I didn't know was going on in my organization. But this is near and dear to your heart. So I think it's a yes. But what do you have to say, considering that this is kind of your job now?
Well, I'm known as the podcast guy at work, and they keep on saying, hey, when are we going to do a podcast on this? When are we going to do a podcast on that? I mean, I work in HR, so I mean, our phones have been lit up all of 2020, and we're putting out programs left and right. We're putting out programs so fast, we are running over each other. We have different divisions running a similar program, and it's like, whoa, we're doing that over here, for our employees. So we have, we're devising our podcast strategy based on what's going to work, and it's not your old fashioned podcast where, you got to have an RSS feed or anything like that. I mean, we're using some internal technology where we don't need an RSS feed. Folks can log in on their computer and they can subscribe to our podcast or our stream or our channel or whatnot. And they can get that information, and then they can get pinged and say, hey, we got a new episode out. So that is a huge thing. And one of the things that I did is I went on a deep dive to find out on federal agencies how many have podcasts that are public access. So you don't have to be internal to get it. And I stopped at 47. I remember I pinged you one day and I'm like, dude, I got like 47 podcasts I got to listen to from the federal government, from all sorts of the federal government. The podcasts are out there, they're being done, and more of it is going to happen just because of the world that we live in. It's easier to take a podcast or a webinar or a Teams meeting or something like that, and to be able to make a podcast out of it, make it bite-sized, the information that they need when they need it right then and there, instead of trying to predict what's going to happen in 2021. If something's happening now, we can comment on it now. And then we can comment on it later and say, hey, we were right on this, or we needed to rethink our process on this. But we've got documentation. And that's an important thing. So yes, 17 is not only a thumbs up, I think it covers my one that you said with a thumbs down. So I say we're 3-0. We're visionaries.
3-1.
But you got to
3-1.
You got to remember one thing though, Kyle. Nostradamus was only right 70% of the time. 70% of his predictions have come true. So if we beat 70%, we're good.
Is right 75% of the time with 3-1. That's 75% right there.
We're doing good. We could stop right there.
Good.
But
all right,
we won't.
17 is a win. Okay, definitely. And I think there's just nothing but growth in that sector. I think the federal and even state and local governments have yet to even tap into this. I think because they understand that people can't come to the really dry board meetings or to the hearings, that now podcasting and even video become more important to them, but definitely podcasting too, because a lot of stuff doesn't have a visual component to it, where you have people sitting around on a Zoom call. No one wants to see just the recording of the Zoom call. They can listen just to the audio. That way they can listen to it on the road and they don't have to watch anything, watch people sit there and pick their nose. So yeah, 17 definitely is. So 16 now. Now we move into some of the heavier topics, Tim. What's 16?
Okay. Number 16, growth of networks to keep up with content by buying up smaller podcasters to add to their portfolio. Kyle, this is another one that we got right, like in spades. Oh my God. So growth of networks to keep up with the content by buying up small podcasters. All I have to say is Spotify buying up Anchor. Boom. We hit it. We nailed that puppy. And we did that back in episode number 29. Think about it. Spotify bought up Anchor. Anchor, a lot of people that, listen to our show here, they know that we're not huge fans of Anchor. We're not huge fans of Blue Yeti unless it's used correctly. Anchor is a good gateway drug into podcasting. Ooh. And, it really, it separates the wheat from the chaff. If somebody's going to do it and do it right and want to put the work into it, they're going to drop Anchor and go to Libsyn, Buzzsprout, Podbean, Blueberry. They're going to go to another provider, and because Anchor is not going to satisfy all their needs. They're going to see the limitations of Anchor and their free network there. And we're seeing these networks pop up and buy out small podcasters. Kyle, I know you got something to say on this one.
Well, Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan is a perfect example of this, is that these big networks, in order to keep up with the content demand, are starting to buy up little tiny shows. Even Wondery has started to reach out to some of these true crime podcasters and suck them into their fold. Gimlet Media being purchased. I forget who bought them, but another place that was gobbled up by these bigger content monsters. There is the creation of the Amazon podcast environment, which has been very interested in podcast content. So there is this very interesting, almost like farm league in the sense of independent podcasters who are creating good quality podcasts that are starting to get tentacles reached out to them. I know Pandora was sniffing around Podfest looking for audio drama people because they want to fill their portfolio and their content with interesting things that people want to listen to. So they'll pay the subscription fee, because some people aren't really that big into music, but they are big into podcasting. And if they can have a product that's exclusive to their platform, they'll pay the fee to be part of that platform. So Spotify and Pandora are two big players in this market. So are a couple other different companies that are starting to do this. This is I think a huge win. We knew this was going to happen a bit. I mean, I don't think that was too difficult to figure that one out, but it's good to see that Joe Rogan got paid a ton of money to even join the platform. Forget what the people have to say about whether or not they like some of his content or not. I think the fact that he interviews the bizarre and interesting people all the time is just a testament to why people like him and why people, he's almost like he's got a little Howard Stern in him too. It's like what they say is, what's the number one reason people listen to Howard Stern? They want to know what he's going to say next. What's the reason why people hate Howard Stern? Because, but yet they still listen because they want to know what he's going to say next. Yeah, Joe Rogan's got kind of that appeal a little bit too. Plus, he's also funny. you ever seen his stand up, it's hilarious and highly inappropriate. So no kids. But that gives us that we're 5-1 now. 5-1.
Wow.
Yeah, I like this. Number 15. Number 15 is probably, again, low-hanging fruit on this one, because I think we hit this one. I think we hit this. I want to say April was the month, right?
Yeah, we hit it right on the head.
Right
so there
on
will
the
be
head.
1 million podcasts in Apple Podcasts by April 2020. And Daniel J. Lewis was the one that was tracking this, like, you know, like NORAD tracks Santa Claus on December 24th. He was going after this. He was like, I'm going to be the first one that breaks this. And as soon as they hit 1 million, I get alerts from him. I've got, stuff set up for him, and it just went gangbusters. It was like bam, 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 bam. We hit 1 million. We hit 1 million. We actually hit 1 million, a half hour ago. Now we're at 1,050,000.
Well, I mean, we could see the writing on the wall, and we could follow we just draw a line from where the angle of the hockey stick was going. But just to give you kind of an idea, episode 29 of Podwreck came out January 2nd, 2020, which means that we nailed the 1 million podcast on Apple Podcasts mark 4 months early.
Mm-hmm.
And we get the exact day, but we didn't get the exact month. So I think that's pretty cool, actually, if you think about it. So that gives us
good, Kyle.
So we're 5-1.
We're 5-1.
5-1.
Okay.
Yeah. We've done what? We've done 6 so far. Yeah. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah. 6 so far. I forget when you put the numbers out of sequence like that, you get this weird count, right? But we're 5-1. We got 5 right, 1 wrong. Not bad so far. Not bad. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So number 14, Tim. Number 14. What do you think this one?
And this one is a cool one because this one I participated in. National Podcast Post Month, or NAPOD POMO, will double in challenge participants in November of 2020. Well, it doubled in terms of Podwrecked because Kyle did it and I did it this year. So boom, doubled. We got it right.
Correct. The best kind of correct. Yeah, I haven't heard from Jennifer yet on whether or not the numbers play out that way, if there was more people, but I did notice that there were a lot of new people, people that had never done it before, which I thought was kind of cool. And I saw even some people that were old-time podcasters. I think David Hooper was involved in this a little bit. Mm-hmm. There were a couple other folks that were participating in producing podcasts for just the challenge of doing 30 podcasts and 30 episodes in 30 days is hard. And if you want to really increase or promote your skills and get as much education you can, I mean, 30 episodes in 30 days will kick you in the teeth. It is not a fun way to do it, but it's doable. If you plan it out right and you stick to a process and you stick to it, you can do it. I unfortunately had to bow out early in this one because this is right where the epicenter of my pandemic experience kicked off. This is where all my fun time with family and health hit hardest. But I made it to like day 9, so I'm still in it a little bit. I think I dropped a couple in the middle there. I think I got like 9 but it taught me a lot of things again about how this process works, and then why daily podcasting is so hard. And if you hear someone say, "I'm going to do a daily podcast," you have to like go, "Whoa, hey, let me, let's talk." Do you know what you're getting into before you do that, right? So you get some junior people who have never podcasted before. I'm going to do a daily. You have to really educate them before they go down this path, because it eats people for lunch, I think. But yeah, I think we got this one right, Tim.
Yeah, we definitely got this one right. Well, it eats you for lunch, but it eats you for lunch in a good way, because I used NAPOD POMO in 2020 to really put my other show together and really plan it out. So much so that I'm already planning for NAPOD POMO 2021, and we're not even 2021 yet. So I've already got that bad boy planned out, show art done, templates done. And all I got to do is show up, record, publish, and promote. And that's all I got to do. And I'm like, oh, that's a lot easier. But if you plan ahead, it is a great way to improve your process. So everybody out there, you got a show, do Napod Pomo, and I will see you on the other side.
Yeah, I think it's an experience you will never forget. And I'm still getting the benefits from my Napod Pomo audio drama I did last year. It's still reaping the benefits from pushing that out in all its bumps and bruises and high points and low points. It's still bearing fruit. So if it creates a catalog of things that people can go find and download, and it's just every time someone downloads the whole catalog of that podcast, I'm like, oh, that's for some reason that's an excellent day. That's an excellent day. That's a download-ageddon. That's what that is. So this brings us to number 13. Number 13. Kyle thinks that Dave will one day soon create a podcast devoted to his Crazy Morning Zoo crew, Binky and the Wiz. Okay. Context here. If you go to episode 21, that is the interview we did with the Hall of Fame Dave Jackson from the School of Podcasting at schoolofpodcasting.com. And at the end of that episode, I asked Dave to do something that I heard him do very few times in his School of Podcasting episodes, where he creates these two characters called Binky and the Wiz. And they're like, oh, Binky, you're so crazy. It's just the way he does the voice. He should have been a voiceover actor for cartoons. It's so cool. But apparently it's not easy for him to do. It like wrecks his voice, something fierce. But at the end of that episode, he did it for us, and we put it as a blooper at the end. So if you got a chance to go to episode 21 of Podwrecked, by all means, listen to that. He's done it again a few other times in a couple of different episodes with a couple of different interviews where he brought them back. I think even did an episode where he did the whole episode as if they were like on the show, and he was just they were like took over the show.
Yeah.
Only it's rough on him. And even his guest even said that would be so cool if you had a podcast about it. And he talked about his voice just would not allow him to create these characters on a daily basis. He'd really have to devote some time and, a lot of editing, things like that. And of course he does, 30 some odd episodes and he's got a full-time job and he's got to take care of, he's moving into a new house and all the other crazy things going on in his life. He's like, that's just not going to happen. So although this is Kyle's wishful thinking, it didn't happen. What do you think about that?
Okay,
Tim?
Kyle, I'm going to talk you into it did happen. You just said that Binky and the Wiz took over one of his episodes. And I'm going to get really technical on here. Kyle thinks that Dave will one day soon. What is one day soon? We still got a few days left in 2020, baby. All we got to do is call up Dave and go, Dave, we need this one from you. We need one episode. We'll do it on Wooshka so that way you don't have to pay anything, and we'll hook you up. You won't owe us one of the $100 that you already owe us now. So okay, Kyle, you got it wrong, but it is wishful thinking. So and we're not going to get 100%, folks. We're not going to get 100%, but as long as we can hit the 70% or higher, we can definitely do that, folks. Definitely do that. So we're going to move on to number 12, Kyle. And number 12 is one of my bad boys. I think I did better on mine than yours, but
Probably.
I think that small businesses will be looking to expand advertising into new markets, and they want to see podcasting work in their market. Big ones take the risk first, then the smaller ones will benefit all the podcasters. So, small businesses advertising on podcasts. I'm going to say we won this one because.
Okay.
So I listened to a podcast. Now I listened to a few podcasts. Have you heard about podcasts, Kyle? It's the new thing. The kids love it.
Oh, wow.
So
Cat's meow.
I'm just meow. Anyhow, so I'm listening to a few podcasts that are supporting small businesses. One of them is called Books and Coffee, and it's about books, writers, and coffee, and it's run by a bookstore owner slash cafe owner slash author. Another one I listen to is Writers Drinking Coffee, which is about writers drinking coffee. Are you seeing a thread here? Okay.
I am.
Writers Drinking Coffee, they actually have advertised a local winery on their show. A local winery out of California, which, hey, California is just, full of wine. So it is happening. These smaller businesses are doing it, and business people are doing it. I believe Dave had on his show a while back, or it was somebody had on their show where they were talking about a financial planner had created a podcast for his business. And I actually told a good friend of mine who's a financial planner, I'm like, listen to this podcast. I will help you set up your podcast in order to do this. And I'm actually in talks with a couple of local businesses for podcasting.
In talks.
So I can't talk about it right here, right now, but I am in talks with these businesses to promote their goods and services on podcasts. And, so I think we nailed this one, pal.
I think so too. And I've been a Black Rifle coffee drinker from Black Rifle Coffee Co. since the very beginning. That's $100 Black Rifle coffee. Veteran owned, a guy named Mike Best on, if you've seen him on YouTube and Facebook, he does the crazy ads where he's it's like a vet way over the top comedy with the veterans. And Black Rifle Coffee came out way back when no one knew who the heck they were. And all of a sudden they're starting to pop up everywhere. And this is another advertiser who didn't think that wasn't really doing podcasting. And all of a sudden, bang, they're like in all the podcasts I'm listening to. Black Rifle Coffee is like everywhere. It was like, what happened here? This is little tiny veteran coffee company has realized that there is an audience, especially in some of the pro veteran podcasts I listen to. Suddenly there they are. So there's that. What is the one that Dave did the other day on like Mighty Networks? I mean, some of these software companies have popped up, and it's Squadcast, $100 Squadcast. You got Zach and Rock from Squadcast popping up all over the place. And, maybe there's even some other kind of small business, think about is some of these people who are sponsoring conferences and realizing that podcasting can and really be part of their like Jody Kringle has been a sponsor of both VidFest and PodFest as well, and the Masterclass and some of those other ones that we go to and talk about. Tiny little business. I mean, Jody Kringle does voiceover and voice acting, and she then was one of the main sponsors of the VidFest and also a main sponsor of the Podcast Masterclass. So there's these small little tiny companies that are realizing that there is a benefit to the podcasting force multiplier of being able to advertise in these kind of spaces. And I see this as a huge advantage, but that's my perspective. Yeah, I'm saying this is a checkbox in the we got this right. And I think this is even something that there's a lot of companies, these small companies are realizing that their advertising bucks go way longer in a podcasting environment because podcasters aren't asking for hundreds of thousands of dollars. I mean, if you go to a podcast you like and you say, hey, I'd like to give you $100 per episode, that's what, $2,600 a year if they do a episode every 2 weeks, or maybe $5,200. If you think about it in the grand scheme of things, an advertising budget, that is a rounding error to some of these companies' marketing budgets. And you're getting voice read advertisement on a podcast that has an audience of in the thousands. That's not a bad deal. Especially if you're giving promo codes and special discounts and special places where you can track who's listening to that particular episode. And then you can track back to that. Because guess what? You can't do that in a newspaper. Definitely can't do that in the magazine. You don't know whether or not that ad came from the magazine or not. Not directly, but you can definitely tell from each episode that comes from that. There's a lot of instant feedback you can get that when that episode dropped, how many people clicked on that ad or went to that ad right after the episode dropped. That's very interactive. It's very, very timely. Where a magazine, wow, that ad doesn't come into the magazine for what, a month, 2 months? I mean, how long does it take for you to get the ad in before the magazine even shows up, if they even buy the magazine on the shelf? So
Right.
I'm saying, yes, this is the way of the future. You will see more of this. That's like when the teacher slaps his hand on the desk, this will be on the test. Yes, this is definitely one of those.
So we're at what, 10-1 now?
7-1. 7-1. I even
7-1.
keep track.
Okay.
Let me count again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I mean 9 total. So we're 8-1.
8-1. Okay. All right. Yeah,
Okay.
math was not my strong suit.
That means number 11. Number 11
Yes.
is Kyle thinks the content wars are coming.
Dun,
Okay, this
dun,
is
dun.
number 10. No, number 11. As the big podcast networks lose their star talent, they are going to start lurking around the smaller networks and either buy their network or start poaching other talent. Well, again, Joe Rogan. I mean, Joe Rogan is going to be the example to a lot of these things. Is yes, of course, that's the most popular one. It's not the only
Sure.
one. What is it? Joe Sose from Stacking Benjamins is another one of those guys who got poached for a bigger podcast. Even what was the guy who does revisionist history, Gladwell.
Oh, Malcolm Gladwell. Yep.
He went and started his own network and he started poaching other talent. Everyone is starting to realize the content game is here and the content wars are coming. And I'm going to say this is a true. I don't think the content wars are quite heated up. I think we're in the content cold war right now, as everyone thought the pandemic was only going to last a few months. And this is what I felt with my friends in the outdoor racing industry of trail running and mountain biking. They all thought they could weather the storm. They put on a couple little fake events, and just churn up, just keep their customers happy with a free T-shirt and a you can do this race anytime in the next month kind of thing. And then it didn't end, and then it didn't end, and then it didn't end. And then, of course, the entire events management industry cratered. So the content wars are coming. We're in the content cold wars. It's about to heat up into the content hot wars. As you've probably experienced this. I don't know if you have. I know I have. Is you get onto Netflix and you scroll because you've seen everything, and then you jump over to Amazon Prime, and you scroll, and I've seen everything there too. And then you go to HBO Max, same thing. You go to Disney, same thing. You've nothing to watch. Then you're starting to watch garbage. I'm starting to watch shows I would never watch in a million years just because I'm bored. I want to watch something interesting. And sometimes I'm even I've watched a lot of movies in subtitles. I've read a lot of movies lately just because, Netflix shoved on there like, the Bulgarian top 10 and, the Chinese top 10 and the Korean top 10. I've been watching a lot of these like strange little shows that they're coming. There's not enough content to fill everyone sitting in front of the screens all day long. They want more, new, and it's going to constantly be this way. The consumption will never end. The appetite will never be satisfied. So if you are creating content people want and it won't be sated, you're in the right business. What do you think, Tim?
Yes, you are.
Did I get this one right?
I'm going to give this one to you, boss. And I'm even going to add in there Luminary, which we haven't really talked about that much. Luminary is they took Love and Radio, which is a podcast that I really liked. However, Love and Radio is doing a offshoot with their secrets hotline where people call up and tell their most inner dark secrets, and it's really a dark show. And you listen to it and you go, man, I thought my life was bad, but I'm like 10 steps above this person, so I'm good. I'm good to go. You have that show, and then I believe you have Welcome to Night Vale, if I heard correctly, is going to go either that show or one of the offshoots is going to go behind the paywall, and is going to go behind the paywall for Luminary. And I believe one of the other PRX shows went behind the Luminary paywall. So this paywall thing is already happening. Now, Luminary had to lower their monthly thing from $8 to like $4 a month to be competitive, because you have all these other streaming services. And with podcasting, you're getting audio. You're just getting straight audio. Whereas your Netflix, you're getting the video you get to see something and all that kind of jazz. But I'm thinking that we're going to see even more of this as the big guys really get into it. And that brings us to number 10, which I'm going to say, Kyle, this one is debatable, but I think I'm wrong on it. Tim's prediction is Disney is going to push into KidCast podcasting behind a paywall by 2020, and with a caveat in 10.1, Disney and Amazon form an unholy alliance. Disney Plus has happened, but that is for movies. But I think it is just a matter of time before they bring in the podcasting behind Disney Plus. And we're seeing all these, HBO Plus, we're seeing Discovery Channel Plus, we're seeing all these pluses behind all these names. And I think podcasting is going to go right behind it, but I don't think it's happened yet. I think it's coming. I'm gonna take the hit. I'm gonna say nope, ain't got it.
I think this is something that maybe we didn't see coming. Was we talked about the Disney and Amazon form a whole unholy alliance when it comes to podcasting like this, and no, Disney decided to take it all in house. They went native on this, and Amazon started their own podcasting service, and Disney went to the Disney Plus streaming service and barely got that out the door before the pandemic came, and they had all sorts of problems launching their network. And they have a couple good shows, but all the Disney stuff suddenly, once the contracts for other streaming services expired, the shows started coming over to Disney. So their catalog is starting to get better. Their stream service starting to get better. They're starting to pick up. The problem with this one that we think we didn't see coming yet is that Disney really hasn't pushed into podcasting yet. And I think it's because they're distracted. I don't think it's because they don't want in this space. I think it's because they're distracted. They had to lay off like 50% of their workforce when it came to the theme parks. They had a huge problem with a hashtag Solo lost money when it came to the Star Wars films, where they paid $4 billion for a franchise that barely broke even. That's not how you make money in the Disney world. So they lost a bunch of money with that. The Mandalorian barely saved them from destroying their entire fan base for Star Wars. So they're starting to come out of this where they're realizing, okay, they're finding their footing. They're going back to the nostalgia that brought the fans in the first place. So they're starting to repair the damage they've done there. The Pixar films are starting to come in the line again. They're starting to come out of this strange coma where they're starting to understand what business they're in. And it's in the content business. And I think they're going to wake up. And this one, I think, is going to translate into a 2021 prediction. I think this was we were just too early on this one. That it's not exactly the fact that it's wrong. It's just we're early. I think Disney is just not there yet. Just like, we thought last year Amazon was going to go into the podcasting business hard, and they didn't. Guess what they did this year? They went into the podcasting business. Well, what happened? We were too early again. So, sometimes we're too early, but so we'll save this one. So yeah, we didn't get this one right, but it's to be continued, I think. So we'll revisit this one in 365 days.
Sounds good.
Well, I've
got it on my calendar, 365.
365. Okay, so that's prediction music. All right. That was number 10. Yeah, prediction music, right? So we're 9 and 2. 9 and 2. Not bad. So this brings us to number 9. Kyle also predicts that Apple will start punishing podcasters this year in the rankings that have not released an episode in over 6 months. This came from episode 14 of Podwrecked. And that, number 9.1, which is Apple will accept money to keep your podcast in the directory forever. Okay. This one's kind of half true, right? I know they don't take money. Okay, let me caveat this. Tim and I found out that we could do a provider page, which means that we could, as GagglePod, we could say, hey, Apple, we're a provider. We're a content, we're a network. We have a bunch of different podcasts, different producers. We want our provider page. And Apple's like, okay, here's 10,000 steps you have to follow in order to get one. So Tim and I did that. We went through all the punishing process that Apple puts you through, all the hoops, the flaming hoops and the trampolines and the shark pits, and we got there. They created a provider page, and we're like, this is awesome. Now, how do we change the background to a provider page? And Apple was like, no, You have to be popular for that to happen. You're not popular. You're not Gimlet. You're not Wondery. So when you're popular, we'll let you know that you can do that. So then we started asking around, well, what does popular mean? Well, popular sometimes means that Apple gets paid. And this is an unfortunate side effect of the Apple eco structure, is that if you want to be big time on Apple, sometimes you smooth their palm with some greenbacks that helps to get there. That you can actually promote yourself in a provider page status, not as a podcast, but as a provider page, which is a page exclusively for that network that gets all their cool podcasts with a nice cool background and themed buttons and everything. Apple will be more than happy to do that for you for a price. That is allegedly how that happens. We cannot confirm or deny that is true, but our sources are pretty good. That being said, Apple did start punishing podcasters for not putting stuff out in a while. They started to really clean up the rankings. They started to go through and clean up the keyword. They were pushing keywords into their titles. So it'd be like the title, like Podwrecked on Fire, a podcast how to survive your podcast, where we do talk about podcasting in the podcasting space, where podcasters go do great things for podcasts and podcasting. That would be the whole title of the dang podcast. That's called keyword stuffing. And the reason is Apple's iTunes, or now Apple Podcasts search engine, sucks. It sucks big. It can do title and author. It's not good. It's horrible. So keyword stuffing is a way, and when I go, I'm looking for a podcast on podcasting. So I type in podcasting and bang, ours comes up because, hey, we stuffed that word in it like 6 times. Yeah. Apple went through and punished those people severely. They blacklisted all sorts of people who were doing that. So I think that's technically true. What do you think, Tim?
Kyle, we got a good streak going on here, so I'm gonna give it. I'm not trying to be soft on it. I think 9.1 is debatable. I think 9 is pretty close to being right on target. I think it's close enough. I think it's in that 55% true enough that we got it for us. So yeah, let's give it to us. Let's give it. We have number 9, so that'll put us at what 10 and 2.
10 and 2. And even if you go back to listen to episode 14, we talked about, we thought maybe Apple would start punishing content producers for not producing content. In other words, get rid of the Podwrecks. All the podcasts are just sitting out there, haven't had a new episode in years. Unfortunately, if you did that, imagine the number of podcasts that would disappear from Apple iTunes, and they don't want a ghost town. They like content, regardless how old it is, until they can get a consistent number of podcasters out there on a daily basis, if you would. They're never going to clean this up that drastically. I think that's my 2 cents. But so this gives us to number 8, Tim.
Number 8. Kyle predicts that Apple will institute a new policy that will change the way they rank podcasts in Apple Podcasts by 2020. And then, tired of waiting for Google to do it, Samsung creates their own podcast app.
Ouch! Just
that one. We
say that out loud.
Yeah. The first part of 8, they're working on the ranking for Apple Podcasts. They really are, because they got called out so many times by people saying, "Hey, listen, they haven't put out an episode in 2 years, 5 years. How can they still be number 1?" And so Apple really got called to the carpet on their ranking. And is it the best ranking? No. I mean, you have Podcast Magazine that has a ranking done by the readers of the magazine. It's an online magazine. And
Chartable does a pretty good ranking too.
Chartable does a good ranking. As a matter of fact, I do believe Mr. Kyle Bondo was in Podcast Magazine. He was a featured artist there at one time.
That's right, for War Yankee. Yeah, history podcast. Yeah. I got 4 out of 5 4.5 out of 5 mics.
Not too bad. That's our rating thing that, you know, we talked about last episode, but that's okay.
Better than Bob's. That's
Better than Bob.
4.5 Bob's. That's 4.5 mics.
But yeah, so, you know, they have changed their policy. Unfortunately, Samsung has not done their own podcast app. Google is not doing a native app yet. I've got the Pixel phone, and Google Podcast didn't come on that automatically, and I had to do my usual stuff with it. Well, I transferred all my stuff over, so this one, Kyle.
Yeah.
We got to stop with the 8.1s and the 9.1s and all that kind of stuff.
This one, yeah, because Samsung, I don't think is going to get into the podcasting player space. I think they build devices, not apps, and I think it's still yet to be seen whether or not here's the thing. Just the other day, I heard a podcaster at a conference say, or maybe they weren't a podcaster, but someone say that new and noteworthy was the way in order to get promoted. That you had only 8 weeks to get promoted through an Apple iTunes or Apple Podcasts. After 8 weeks, you couldn't get on new and noteworthy anymore. That's false. That is utterly false advice. And when I heard it, I spit my coffee out because I could not believe that in 2020 that is still being pushed by people. That just boggles my mind why that's still around. Apple has, who knows what the heck new and noteworthy is. The way I understand it, it's a panel of people who come into the office that morning and talk about the things that they heard on a podcast or liked a podcast they just recently heard, and they put it up there as their favorites. It's almost like, if you remember Blockbuster Video way back when, you could go in there and find out, Bob works at Blockbuster, and he's got a shelf that this is Bob's picks. And if you couldn't figure out a movie, you go find out, what does Bob like? And Bob likes maybe these movies that I've never seen before, and I go rent that movie. Apple new noteworthy, the same thing. It's just digital.
Yeah,
that's allegedly. That's how I understand how that works. Which is how you can get a podcast from 2009 to be in new and noteworthy, and a podcast from last week to also be there. So when it comes to this, the algorithm for how the directory works, everyone claims they know the secret sauce, and some people have done some really hardcore computer science experiments to try to reverse engineer Apple's directory ranking system, and they get close. And then a company, I believe it was out of Singapore or Malaysia, hack the algorithm. They dropped 2 or 3 different podcasts that you obviously knew were garbage. They had really bad show art. They were bad audio quality. They were not good podcasts at all. Bang, top 10. And people are like, what? How'd that happen? Yeah, because they figured out how to game the system. So just like any computer system, it can be hacked. It can be, you can muck with it. There is always a way to screw with this to make it not work. So yeah, they're working on it. It didn't happen this year. So I think I didn't get that one right. Okay. Dead horse. I'm not going to argue. Number 7. More podcasters will discover that recording before their audience live is one of the primary ways to grow their podcast tenfold in 2019. This is a leftover from last year we brought forward that I thought that podcasting live would improve their podcast tenfold. I think this is true. And I think this is true because of the way I've seen not only YouTube be used for podcasting, and with that comes StreamYard and a couple other of the streaming services, but seeing people who are doing podcasts using Twitch. And using Twitch is live all the time. It's live. You're streaming live to Twitch. It's never recorded unless it's previously recorded. There's some funky ways. I think like Twit, which is This Week in Tech. I think they can do some things that was previously recorded, but then again, they're a partner of Twitch, so they probably have special secret sauce, code, handshake kind of things. But recording live through Twitch, you could then rip the audio off that and it becomes your podcast. And I've been seeing a lot more podcasts I listen to. I can tell it was recorded live in front of a video audience and then dropped to the podcast. a lot of radio has been going this direction, where they're doing a radio show and then they drop it to the podcast, and it's the same radio show, only with the special ads for whatever radio station locality had for that period. And then they just drop in their own, like sometimes it's like one ad they'll drop in between those breaks, or they won't have ads at all. There are some podcasts listen to that in the radio, it's 3 hours long, but you got to listen to the ads. So it's actually an hour and 20 minutes, but you listen to the podcast, short, bang, 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 no ads. So, or maybe maybe it's host read ads, which are, they sneak in. So this is one of those things where I think a live audience builds a podcast audience faster than podcasting itself. What do you think, Tim?
Well, I'm going to add to this and I think this will be in our 2021 show. But I think that one of the first things that is going to come back is podcasts going back out on the road, such as, Welcome to Night Vale. They're itching to get back on the road. They're doing live shows online through YouTube and all the services that are out there. You got to pay to see the show that is live. You can't go out and touch the actors, but that's happening with a lot of shows now too. Is they've had to pivot, instead of physically going someplace, now they can do it in their studio and they can do the show there, do it that way. So it's a very, it was a dramatic reading anyways, a dramatic stage reading anyways, in my opinion, but now it's even more so, being recorded and everything like that. So I think that one is still, is a good one. I think we got it. And I think what we're going to see in 2021 is to expand on that. That's going to be the cheapest and easiest way to get shows out to live audiences. I mean, everyone wants to go see these big old rock shows and all that kind of jazz. But if there is a limit on how many people that can be in a theater, so let's say it holds 1,000 people, but you can only have 500 people in that theater. Well, a podcast is easier to get out on the road because there's less stuff to bring. There's a smaller audience, but they can pack a 500 seat, a 500 seats versus a 1,000 seat show. And I think you'll see that happen a lot more. So yes, and expand it even more into 2021. I hope it expands more into 2021 because I'd love to see a lot of my favorite shows live in person, in an actual theater setting. So
it's the same way
we got it.
Yeah, I'm the same way with audio dramas too. I found one of the audio dramas, which was called Wolf 359, by seeing their YouTube video of their dramatic presentation of the script in front of a live studio audience. You could call it the studio, but it was the live reading. It was the characters being the characters, reading scripts from 3-ring binders with people in the audience. And I think because of the pandemic, there has been a revival of artistic mediums like that. Well, people are just tired of looking at the screen and tired of watching TV, and they want to do something where they can't necessarily go to the movies because all the theaters are closed, but the coffee shops kind of maybe be open, or maybe there's a small, you're talking about small intimate gatherings. I think you're going to see that come back. I think you're spot on with that. And having a podcast or a dramatic readings, or maybe even like a variety show. Maybe it's like, it's like a play, it's singing, it's poetry, and maybe it's audio drama mixed in, kind of like the way the radio lab guys did for the one you went to. I think it's gonna. I think that is a viable offering that people will pay money for, and good money, not like $20, like $200 to go see that, because what else do you got to go see? I mean, sometimes the entertainment business right now is more or less dead when it comes to some of these live shows. So you have a huge opportunity. If you have a show that's entertaining that can be watched live, think about this. Even at small gatherings, I mean, you can probably use that to fund your next year's worth of production. So I think that's exactly. All right, Tim, what's number 6?
Number 6 is Kyle's favorite thing to talk about: audio drama. Audio drama podcasters will be the next to leverage Patreon as their alternative monetization stream, but only if they master bonus content and fan service outreach, i.e., live shows, swag, and appearances. We got this one so right, dude. You got this one so right. Anytime you say audio drama, I know you're right.
Yeah, well, the book ends very nicely to number 7 too. On top of that, and I had a nice long conversation with Sean Howard from Fable and Folly, who does shows like Albasalix and Civilized, and this is where their main source of income comes from, is from Patreon. Their Patreon is their Patreon is strong. They have very good bonus content. They've figured out that what bonus content works, that it's not bloopers or behind the scenes kind of with actors. It's extra content. It's special shows. It's small little productions where it's just them, talking for 5 minutes with the actors playing their parts in a small little like side script. That is what generates the revenue. And they have, I think, the audio drama people even more so, because we did this earlier, like episode 11 was like, wow, that was way back, right? But I have seen so many audio dramas use Patreon to leverage this to keep their productions afloat. In fact, I've even seen some use Kickstarter or Indiegogo to fund their productions. So this is not only is this true, but you're going to see way more of this for next year too, because I think audio drama is just the tip of the iceberg right now with some of the stuff that's about to come out, simply because everybody has been sitting at home writing up scripts. They gotta get them produced, and they're learning how to produce them without the actors all being in the same room. Now there's this disconnect between the drama people who used to do everything on the stage or do everything in a studio versus the digital creators who are doing everything on a computer. They couldn't get everyone in the same room when everyone was in the pandemic, but they've mastered tools like Squadcast or Zoom or WebEx or a couple of these other tools, Riverside. They're starting to learn these tools, and by learning these tools, they're learning how to direct actors remotely and get good quality from these actors, because then they can talk them through the technology. This is where they're going to fund that.
Oh yeah. On to number 5, Kyle. We're going to see a lot more people do the one and done episode, but that's okay, because they're going to learn to appreciate what goes into producing a podcast, and they will become sponsors of podcasts who they like. We did that way back in episode 10. And then we had a 5.1. We got to stop with these 0.1s, dude. The next anchor like company will appear in 2020. So yeah, the pandemic, people, cranked out the podcasts, and they went away because a lot of them just, there was a visible spike. And if you go run on over to Daniel J. Lewis, he can show you where that spike happened and how it's come down now. And it came down probably after most episode 7s. Like we tell you, 7 and 13. That's kind of your break off point right about there.
Lives.
It happens. The next anchor like company will appear in 2020. I haven't noticed an anchor like. I haven't noticed another company come on as strong as Anchor did, because Anchor was like everywhere. It was nowhere, and then boom, it was on the scene and everywhere like a shot in the dark. That hasn't happened really in 2020. Anchor just kept on getting bigger and bigger and bigger, got bought up by Spotify and done with that. So I haven't seen the next Anchor pop out there yet. Now, Captivate is getting a lot of following, is getting a strong following. And I know they're not that old, but as far as a media host like that, I'm not seeing that happen. So, if we get rid of 5.1, we got this one. So I don't think we count the 5.1.
Yeah, let's look at this. We're going to see a lot more people do one and done episodes, and that is true. That's 100%, and that they're going to start to appreciate that and then shift to maybe being more sponsors or supporters of podcasting or professional listeners in a sense than being podcasters themselves. They're going to learn how hard this is and be a little more receptive of that. And I've seen some folks be that way. They become sponsors of certain things rather than being producers of podcasts themselves. And some of these companies have these one and done podcasts. The next Anchor-like company to appear, well, we thought Anchor was dead. It's not dead. Yeah, it's like The Walking Dead. It came back to life. It's undead. So it's still out there. So in a sense, we found out that Spotify didn't kill it. It's still around. So technically, the next Anchor is Anchor. It's the Anchor.
It's like Spotify.
Yeah, it's Spotta Anchor. So I think that's a win. I'm calling that a win.
All right, you twisted my arm. We'll call it a win.
Mostly correct. That's all. That was the 51%. Mostly correct. Yeah. I like that. That's the majority of it's correct. So that sounds good. So that brings us to number 4, Tim. Number 4 is painful, but hit us. We talked about this at the very beginning of the show, but here's number 4. This is a quick one.
And this comes back from episode number 10 in our first year. We'll make it to 50 episodes that year. We didn't. We'll make it another 50 next year, which is this year. We didn't. And we talked about this at the top of the show. We're at 47. I think that's a reasonable number. That is a respectable number, because if you look at it, in a 2-year time span, 26 plus 26 is about 52. That's every other week. We're just shy of that at 47 versus 52. We're just shy of that. So I think we're doing a good job because we're putting out good content every episode. We want 50 episodes in a year that are fantastic episodes, that are episodes that you cannot live without. That's what the goal is. If we can get close to the goal, fantastic. We're at 97% of the goal. All right, cool beans. Not a problem. I'm good with that. So that's all I'm going to say about that, Kyle.
Well, we're standing on the hill. We're standing on the hill, and we're looking down the backside of the hill, and we can see 50. We see 50 right there on the backside of the hill. We're almost there. And on top of all that, both years we took the month of November off. We had the October kind of long period. There's still the holiday stuff from every year. There's the holiday stuff, right? With the family and the craziness all takes place. And then this year we had the added benefit of total world chaos. So, I don't think we should be too hard on ourselves. And we didn't hit it, but hey, good. What they say, great is the enemy of good, or good is the enemy of great. But I like to think of General Patton in this case. Is a good plan executed now is better than a great plan executed 2 weeks from now. So we're gonna take this as, I would almost say that it's a win, but we didn't hit 50. So let's call it apple and apple, right? So we're gonna take that. We're gonna take the hit on that one, but that's okay. We're okay with that because we learned a lot. We got pretty close, and we're going to throw this one into the 2021 prediction just to get an easy win. No, we're probably up that number a little bit, but 50 is coming. I think realistically, I think we're going to hit 50 by February. So what we're tracking, but that brings us to number 3. Number 3, dang it. Google Podcast will eventually go native on Android. We will be on every phone and become a must-have app for podcast listeners in the next 3 years. Okay. Half of this is right, half of this is wrong. The wrong part is it will go native on Android. That didn't happen. It still hasn't happened. It is the most annoying thing ever that Android does not have Google Podcasts as part of its native application. You don't buy a Samsung Note 20 or Samsung S20 or a Samsung S10 Note 2. Google Podcast doesn't come on it. You have to download it. Okay. Mm-hmm. Is that a bad thing? The second part, I think, kind of says that. It says that it will be the must-have app for every podcast listener for the next 3 years. when Google Podcast first came out, everyone was like, "Yeah, ugh, whatever, pass." Not even welcome to the game late. In the past year, eat your crow. Google is enjoying is just eating your salad. They are drinking your milkshake. Google Podcast has turned on the volume to 11 and ripped the knob off. That app is so good now. It works so well now. It is almost I'm at the point now, and I know you already have, and so I'm not going to steal your thunder. I'm at the point where I'm about to bail on Pocket Casts and go full in on Google Podcasts. But Tim, what do you have to say about that?
Kyle, come to the dark side. We've got cookies at Google Podcasts. Here's the thing about Google Podcasts that is great for the podcast industry. It is easy to use. It does not have necessarily all the bells and whistles. It's getting some. It's getting really good at it, and it's getting really good at predicting what you want to listen to, giving you good suggestions on what is similar to what you're listening to. This is everything that Apple Podcasts should have been. Google Podcasts has become. And when I talk to somebody that's brand new to podcasting and brand new to listening to podcasts, I grab their phone. If it's Apple, I put on gloves because it's infected. It has the COVID, especially bad. So I put in, 2 extra gloves. But if they've got an Android phone, I will download Google Podcasts for them. And they'll look at it and go, "Oh, this isn't too. Why haven't I been listening to podcasts before? Why didn't I not know about this?" And every time I show them Google Podcasts, they're all like, "Does this cost me anything?" Nope. Good. And they're happy. Pocket Casts, when you showed it to me way back when, I that's one of the few apps that I actually paid for. I actually paid for Pocket Casts, and I was happy with it until they changed. They did that big major update, and you remember it, and we talked about it on the show.
Yep.
And when they did that change, I started looking at Google Podcasts. I was like, well, wait a minute. And then we started talking about it. And then I jumped ship. I said, I'm out the door. I'm seeing where Google Podcasts is going. And it's not native to Android yet. And I think we got a little fuzzy on that because Android phones is everything that's not Apple. So you've got a lot of different manufacturers out there that Google Podcasts would have to, pay to get onto. When it's just easy to go to the Play Store, download it, and be done with it. I think that's Google Podcasts mindset in that. Do I work for Google Podcasts? I should. And if you know anybody at Google Podcasts, you let them know that Timothy Kim O'Brien is looking for a job with them specifically, not Apple, Google Podcasts.
Yeah, we'll both go to work there.
Yeah.
I will drink Kool-Aid for days to work at the Google Podcast. That would be a fantastic job. I would love that. That would definitely be the job to have. Hey, Kyle and Tim, your job is to promote Google Podcast. I would be at every conference. I would be at every event, every venue. We'd have a podcast called about Google Podcasts. We talk to the developers, the designers, and the people who use it. And it would be a household word. So Google, that's $100. All right, Tim. Number two is why do we even put this one in here? But number 2, go ahead.
Right. Easy one. A podcaster will have media credentials big enough to ask the president of the United States a question in 2020. Yeah, we got that. Because we didn't say an indie podcaster. We didn't say, we know. But a podcaster, your major media outlets do have a podcast to them. Wall Street, not Wall Street, New York Times, Washington Post, all these have
that's true
the podcast that latches onto that. But I think that there was like a couple of smaller than the big guys, smaller than the major media podcasters that actually got to ask questions of number 45 there, President Trump, in 2020. It's been a weird year,
It has.
and I think because it's been a weird year, we're going to get the word out on whatever we need to get the word out on. Whatever medium we need to use, we're going to go ahead and do that. Fox has a podcast. Fox News has a podcast. They all have podcasts. So,
They almost have
yes,
to now. Yeah.
no one heard.
It's true, because, and then you think about it, they're like major celebrities. You remember way back there was a controversy with the was it the lady from Fox, Megyn Kelly, who then left Fox and went her own way, and she went over to here, over there, and she bounced around. She has her own podcast now, and now she's asked, she once asked the president or presidents names and things like that. Senator Ted Cruz from Texas has a podcast now called Verdict. There's all these different people jumping onto the podcast bandwagon. So these big time politicians that are on the news all the time, that talk to presidents and vice presidents and Congress people and so on and so forth, are all now realizing that the one way to get your message out, that you can't be canceled, can't be take me off the air unless I, because like I own my media, is to have a podcast. And I think this is when you read this about media credentials big enough to ask a president of the United States the question, I think what's happening now is that because the news media is losing their influence, because of the alternative media is getting bigger and bigger with video and podcasting and live streaming and all that kind of thing, is you're starting to blur the lines between what's a journalist. And as these journalists start to leave these companies and become independent and start their own companies, all these different kind of news places popping up, you're going to have, and it's going to be bizarre. It's going to be one of those times where you're going to get at the White House news conference, you're going to get someone called on from The Daily, which is the New York Times podcast, but not New York Times as the banner, but Bob Smith from The Daily. Hi, Bob Smith from The Daily. I'd like to ask you about X, Y, and Z. He doesn't say New York Times because The Daily is it's kind of its own brand now. So you're going to have that is coming. I know that's coming, and we've seen it's a mix. This is a mixed one. I'm going to say this is true. I'm going to say we hit this one. I'm going to say it's true. I think you have a pretty good. Your point was very valid. We're gonna wrap this up. This is episode 8. We have way, but these are some of the ones we pulled from 2019 that we didn't get right in 2019. That now we're starting to get right. Now it's starting to change. Podcasters are starting to blur the lines of journalism, which then leads us to, speaking of blurring the lines, number 1. That's right. Numero uno, number 1. The big kahuna. More true crime podcasters will form content networks to improve their credibility and audience sizes in 2020. Now, I did a little research on this one because I knew it was coming. And let me tell you about a few things. One, Chartable says that the global reach number 1 podcast is Crime Junkie. Apple Podcast number 1 is Crime Junkie. Spotify top podcast number 3 is Crime Junkie. Number 8, My Favorite Murder. Number 9, Morbid. These are all big time true crime podcasts. True crime podcast is Podcast Crack, apparently for women. Apparently 75% of true crime podcasts are listened to by women. This is the number 1 podcast genre that is listened to by women. Interesting. But what does that all mean? Well, let's just look at Wondery. Wondery is a perfect example of this. Dr. Death became an Amazon, I think it's Amazon, no, it's Netflix, a TV show. They went into season 2. Do you know how much Wondery made last year, Tim? He just guessed.
I'm going to say 300 million.
Oh, wow. No, that would have been nice for them. No, they made $77.8 million last year. Wondery has dropped a lot of their stuff behind the paywall. So you have to have a subscription for $4.95 a month in order to, or $4.99 a month, or $35 a year. Some of their stuff. But that's just the tip of the iceberg for some of these networks. The true crime people have lost their mind. Of course, just like they say, the golden era of podcasting is over 15 times, depending on the year. Every journalist has this story for some reason, and it's never true. There are some stories out there that say that even true crime is done, that it's over. But I don't see it. I see that the numbers say otherwise. So The fact that they're going to form their own networks, I see that all over the place, of these little tiny true crime people joining together and forming little true crime networks. And Wondery is the biggest one of them all. What do you think?
Well, true crime is not my cup of tea. I'm not a big fan of it. However, my theory is that some of the women that are listening to true crime are getting ideas on how to avoid prosecution and get rid of their husbands. A lot of the people that I talk to, they're big fans of true crime, and most of the people I talk to that are big fans of true crime are of the female persuasion. So, and I think, you look at television, you look at Cops. People loved watching Cops, and it was like one of the longest running TV shows ever. It ran for 30 years. I was like, it's been out for 30 years, 35 years, something like that. Yeah, it has been. So people really enjoy that genre, and podcasting in true crime podcasts are just a wonderful extension of it. If you like Cops, try this. If if you like Murder, She Wrote, try this. If you like 2020 or 60 Minutes, or Geraldo Rivera, try this kind of stuff. And they have really come into their own. Even the Hallmark Channel. My wife had me watch the Hallmark Channel because she saw a true crime podcast that they were, dramatizing. And I instantly criticized it because they had an H4N on there, and they had it hooked up wrong. And I just tore that whole thing apart, so much so that she has never asked me to watch another episode of that one again. And I was like, this doesn't happen this way. I mean, in the real world, this would never happen. But it's, the funny thing is that it's so big that the Hallmark Channel had to make a heroine who was a true crime podcaster. Kind of reflecting back and forth like that. So,
art imitating life, imitating art.
Yeah, it's an enigma wrapped in something or other, wrapped in a Arby's bag, full of curly fries.
Oh, it's brilliant.
Curly fries. That would taste good right now. And you don't know what would taste good right now? Curly fries with an RE320.
RE320. So that leads us to the count, and the count is 15 right, 5 wrong. Mm-hmm. We said that Google Podcasts will eventually be a native to Android. We didn't get that right. We said we hit it 50 episodes. We hit 47. We predicted that Disney was going to push KidCast podcasting. Yeah, that's not happened yet. Maybe next year. We said that that Kyle thinks that Dave will one day soon create a podcast devoted to the crazy Morning Zoo crew, Binky and the Wiz. That didn't happen either. And the era of podcast festival conference has hit its critical mass. This year, it did not. So it is definitely still alive and breathing. We'll see about next year. So,
but the important thing is, Kyle, we hit 75%.
What 75% is pretty good. Yeah,
it's better than Nostradamus, who only had 70%. So we're better than Nostradamus. Not only can you, be, informed about how to not wreck your podcast, we are more accurate than Nostradamus.
That's pretty good. I don't know if I missed one. I'm sure if you're keeping count at home, they're probably screaming out there, no, you missed one in the middle there. But no, we justified everything. So if we missed one, then you're gonna have to tell us, because right now we're taking the win. We're taking the 15-5. If this was a soccer game, you just got smooshed. as Ed McMahon would say, or not Ed McMahon, who is it? One of the football guys, he called it a slob knocker. That's where you get hit so hard that it knocks all the water out of your mouth. Like, that's pretty hard.
Yeah.
So this is our predictions for 2020, and we got 15 out of 15. I mean, if you think about flipping a coin 100 times, you're going to flip it heads 50 and tails 50. The way the math works out. So we got 15 right, 5 wrong. That's pretty good. That means we're above 500 batting average. We're better than Nostradamus. We're Podstradamuses. So I think that's a pretty good track record. I can't remember what we got last year. Did we do pretty good last year? Would we have the same? Did we beat last year's total?
No, I think we had 80% last year, but
I think we
but
did
that's
better.
okay.
Yeah, I think we did better.
Yeah, I think we did better. Well, we didn't have a pandemic to deal with to mess things up.
That's the free space on my bingo card, right next to space aliens and giant monsters from under the ocean.
I had bears wielding chainsaws for some reason. I don't know.
What's black and white and red all over? Penguins in a chainsaw fight. Yes. So
There you go.
15 out of 5 or 15 out of 20. Not bad. If this was a quiz, well, we got to see.
Gotta see.
That's okay. It's for fun. We do it for it's fun. Yeah. Sometimes we wear tights because it's for fun. So this was our prediction show, the last show of the year. Tim, give us some final thoughts coming out of 2020 of what you're feeling, what you're thinking about Podwrecked and podcasting in general.
I'm feeling pretty good, Kyle. I mean, I'm standing here looking at my my new microphone, but I see a lot of great things happening in the podcast world, and they're happening because people are really taking this medium seriously on both sides of the microphone. On the listener side, they're getting a lot of great content, a lot of great stuff that they can use, that they can, cross-reference and check and be entertained with. And on this side of the mic, there's a lot of people stepping it up. There's a lot of manufacturers out there stepping up their game and giving us better equipment, better materials, better ways to communicate with you. Now, yes, we did have this horrible pandemic. Kyle and I both kind of have a dark sense of humor, and that's how we get through a lot of things. And we make fun of the pandemic, but in our hearts, our hearts go out to everyone that's been affected by it, including ourselves. We've definitely been affected by it. But I think with this pandemic happening, a lot of things that we thought were impossible at one point now became not only possible but vital. I mean, who would have honestly thought that, we're going to have 5,000 people at a virtual podcasting conference and that it would be of high quality. Podfest was very high quality. It was very good. They're not paying me to say this. They're not giving me a free ticket to get in. Although, Chris, hey, I'm just saying, 2021 is coming up. Papa bought a microphone. He needs a free ticket. Seriously, folks.
Yeah.
But seriously, folks, the technological advances that we've seen just in this year have been, for nerds like me, have been a wonderful things to see. And I geek out a lot about the tech and all that kind of good stuff. And just seeing people get into the space and respect the space and take it seriously makes me feel like I made a good choice a few years ago when I went to that community college and, knocked on the door and said, "Is this the podcasting thing?" I'm glad I did, because it brought me here today to be able to talk to all of you and to talk to this guy right next to me here, in the virtual space, and to be able to help you survive your podcast. So 2020, yeah, it was a train wreck, but guess what? We're going to come out of it a lot stronger, and a lot of good things are going to come out of 2020. What's your final thought, Kyle?
Well, that's just is the burning train hitting the burning dumpster, burning train dumpster fire of 2020. But yeah, just to kind of piggyback off of a lot of those statements, there is, I think this is the year of perspective. I don't think 2020 was a waste at all. I think it helped you realize not only it stopped people from wishing they had more things and appreciating the things that they had. And podcasting was something that we had cultivated for so long, and suddenly we were in an environment where it mattered. It mattered more than a lot of things did to produce this show for people who are listening and wanting to not only start their own, make their show better, understand the medium better. It put us in a really interesting spot where we evaluated ourselves, we improved our own game, we got more involved in producing better things, better shows. And I think that's a good thing. It gave us that perspective to know that, okay, you know what, this medium has an impact. People are listening, and because of that, it matters, and it matters to those people who are listening to that we show up. And sometimes you forget that. Sometimes you forget that there's someone waiting for you to drop an episode or to give them something that they're wanting to hear you. Not necessarily what you're saying in the sense, but they're wanting to check in and make sure that, you almost become like friends in a sense. Some of my podcasts I listen to it's like I get worried about them sometimes. You hear they're not on the air for a couple of days and you're like, oh, I wonder what happened to them. Or you find out that they're sick or something, or they have a family member that's sick. And you start getting concerned for them. You feel bad for them. I mean, you and I have even had a couple close calls where we thought like, oh, some bad things are going to happen. And thank God they didn't. So we've had a lot of blessings in this past year. I think our podcasting game has definitely doubled, and next year is going to be bonkers. I think just listening to your schedule of stuff you have planned for the shows that you're doing is going to be insane. I know that I had Jody Krangle do the voiceover for one of my audio dramas that I'm pretty close to start producing. She did the voiceovers for the intro and outro for it. Oh, it's so awesome. The minute she finished that, I was like, oh, now I have to do it. Now that I've got made this commitment, I got to do this, right? So there's these great things. This year gave us time to contemplate the things that were really important, get rid of a lot of the garbage we didn't. Like I think at the end of this year, a couple of my podcasts that I've had just hanging around go away, which is a huge. I don't think I would have done that had it been a different year. I would have gotten rid of those podcasts, and now there's room for other things to grow. And I'm going to save some money. I've been spending money on shows that just been sitting around that haven't been paying me a paycheck. So yeah, it's time for a microphone. Time for an upgrade as my equipment starts to age here. But I just want to say to you listening out there that thank you for listening to us. Appreciate you showing up and to hear what Tim and I have to say. I think that means a lot. It means more than you could ever know. And Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Happy Holidays, and I hope you have a great New Year. And I think Podwreck's going to be even better 2021. So here's to 100 episodes.
Thank you for listening to Podwrecked, where we help you survive your podcast. Folks, you just heard our end of the year blow up here. We went 15-5. Now, if you're, a big NFL fan like I am, 15-5 is a great record to have, although there's only 16 games in the season, but that's all right. That's all right. 15-5 is fantastic. You probably won the Super Bowl and lost a few before the Super Bowl, hopefully. But we went 15-5, 75%, showing you proof positive that we can predict better than Nostradamus. We're better than Nostradamus. He's got nothing on us. He only got 70% of the time. Who are you going to trust? Somebody that is there 3/4 of the time or not quite 3/4 of the time? Okay? You know what I'm saying, folks. And if you want to find out more about our predictions or all the episodes, just go right on over to podwrecked.com. And while you're there, there's a little special thing there for you. There's the Salvage Team that you can be part of the Podwrecked Salvage Team. Now, Kyle doesn't know about this, but there's also the Salvage Dawg Team. Now, I know Kyle said at the beginning that nobody predicted on their little bingo card that we were going to have a global pandemic, but everybody that's on the Salvage Dawg Team knows that in February, I put it out on the newsletter. So you're on the Salvage Dawg Team, you already know what's up for 2021. So be there for that. If you want to contact us, hey, podwrecked@gmail.com. It pops on over to us. We'd love to hear what you think about the show, ideas that you have for the show. Hey, do you want to be interviewed on the show? You want to be interviewed right here with us, with Kyle and I? Trust me, we don't bite. Well, I bite a little bit, but Kyle doesn't bite. I only bite a little bit. You'll be just fine with us, okay? Shoot an email to us. Let us know what you think, because we do the show for you. Hey, folks, this is Podwrecked, where we help you survive your podcast. And we can't wait for the next episode. So be there with us, so that way we can help you out. See you next time.
The debut of Tim's new microphone. No, he's pretending it's not on.
Kyle, why did you mute me? It's a beautiful sounding microphone.
That's it. There you go.
I'm cutting across the mile while I'm eating Wisconsin cheese and German pretzels.
German pretzels. Oh, wow. So is that the end?
That's it, dude. That's, no, Kyle. No, it's not the end. Hold on. Okay, that's the end.
End of the year? Is the year over?
No. The end of the year is not over. If it's the Aztec calendar, it was over in 2012. So we would have been long over by now, but we're not going by the Aztec calendar, are we?
It's the age of Aquarius.
Oh, that would be hair, which I don't have because I just shaved my head. So
Year
it's not
of
the
the
age of hair of the dog that bit you.
This is like the end.
If Jim Morrison was a dog and bit you, this is the end. My furry friend, the end.
And that furry friend would be the year of the ox, 2021. That truly is the end, because here comes the steak and potatoes. Happy New Year. This podcast is part of the GagglePod Network. Find more podcasts like this at gagglepod.com.